Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take the source material and, well, we distill it down to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. And today we're diving into something that feels, honestly, a little counterintuitive in the world of learning. We're talking about silence. This deep dive is all about a pretty radical approach to language acquisition, specifically mastering English by really emphasizing quiet internal focus. Our sources today are pulled heavily from the philosophy behind a concept called silent growth. So our mission really is to pull out the key insights, both psychological and linguistic, on why turning down the volume can actually speed up your learning. This is a big one for anyone out there who feels totally swamped, overwhelmed, discouraged by comparing yourself to everyone else. And here's where it gets really interesting. The strategy is basically to hide your learning until it's strong enough to stand on its own.
It's a huge pivot, isn't it? Because all the conventional wisdom is about performance.
Right. Speak more.
You have to speak, you have to find a partner, you have to explain what you're doing. But this methodology, it targets that very specific, very exhausted audience, English learners who are distracted, who are discouraged by all the noise and the constant pressure to perform their progress.
An audience. Yeah.
Exactly. So the sources frame this whole silent growth idea as a deliberate counter strategy. It's a tool for learners who might already be quite competent, but their confidence is just fractured.
Okay, so let's just pull the core premise out right away because it's surprising.
Yeah.
The sources are basically arguing that you don't need to be speaking all the time to grow.
Not at all.
You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to demonstrate anything until you're ready. And in fact, silence and that quiet, consistent internal work, that's the secret accelerator.
That's the secret. It helps you learn faster and really embed the knowledge more deeply. And I think to really get the solution, we have to diagnose the problem first. So that brings us to the common roadblocks for learners. The sources are super specific about what this is designed to overcome.
Okay, let's unpack that, the psychological side of it.
Yeah.
What are these common issues that this quiet method is built to fight?
So there are, let's say, 4 major psychological hurdles that this whole approach addresses. First up is just distraction. In our modern world, we're always multitasking, and that leads to what the sources call cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload.
Which is, you're trying to manage vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, social cues, speed, all at the same time. And that complexity just paralyzes you.
I totally get that feeling. It's like trying to juggle chainsaws. You're so focused on not dropping one that you can't actually learn the routine.
That's a perfect analogy. And the second hurdle is that crippling fear of judgment.
Ah, yes.
Most learning platforms, they force you into public interaction right away. And if you feel like every single sentence you try is going to be dissected or corrected,
You just shut down.
you just stop speaking. The sources say this fear is one of the biggest things holding people back from long-term fluency.
That makes so much sense. We're more afraid of the social penalty for a mistake than the actual learning opportunity that the mistake gives us.
Absolutely. Then there's the third one, the terrible habit of overthinking mistakes.
Oh, the internal critic.
Yes, a quiet, anxious learner will replay one tiny grammar error for an hour, turning it into this huge deal. This method wants to stop that loop. And finally, maybe the most damaging of all is comparison. That habit of comparing your own messy, private, internal journey.
Full of doubt and hesitation.
Right, with the polished, public, social media highlight reel of some other learner.
That comparison trap is brutal. You see someone online, they sound flawless, and you immediately feel like your 6 months of quiet work meant nothing.
The sources have a name for that. They call it the performance treadmill. And this whole methodology is about telling you to just step right off it.
Okay, so if the goal is to tackle all that anxiety and pressure, the learning environment itself has to be, well, radically different. The materials sound less like a course and more like a retreat.
That's a good way to put it. They describe the experience as a soft, reflective monologue, almost a whisper. It's intentionally not for your busy commute. It's meant for a peaceful moment late at night or really early in the morning when everything just feels still.
So it's designed to be this calm, reassuring voice when your brain is otherwise quiet. You're creating a really low-stakes environment. I love the analogy of learning to drive. You don't learn how to use a clutch on a busy highway. You do it in an empty parking lot where stalling is just, a mild inconvenience.
That is spot on. That quiet, low-pressure atmosphere is the foundation of the whole thing. It encourages the learner to stay focused and, crucially, to trust their own internal process.
Instead of needing that external validation all the time.
Exactly. It's a deliberate move to slow everything down and just reduce the pressure to perform. I mean, when you remove the stage, the rehearsal suddenly becomes so much more meaningful.
So if that's the feeling, what's the actual structure that creates that safety? This takes us right to the core philosophy here, the power of self-focus. Why is looking inward considered so much more powerful than, explaining yourself to everyone?
This is where we get to what the sources call the anti-performative model.
Okay.
It really champions that quiet, consistent, daily practice of your own private journey. Think about it. In standard learning, the goal is to produce a result for someone else.
A teacher, a test, a conversation partner.
Right. But here, the only audience is you.
So all the energy you'd normally waste trying to explain your struggles, like, oh, I didn't get this tense because,
Yeah.
you redirect all of that into the actual learning.
Precisely. The sources really emphasize that genuine confidence, the deep, lasting kind, is built step by step without pressure. When you stop explaining yourself, you're just doing the work. You're internalizing the structure, not externalizing the outcome. And think about the psychology of that. If you practice in silence for 2 weeks and nobody knows, you've eliminated the pressure of having to explain why you didn't improve as fast as someone expected.
You take away the fear of failure because failure becomes a private event.
It's just for you. And the vocabulary they use reinforces that focus. It's like a set of affirmations. The core words are things like focus, silence, practice, quiet, confidence, and progress.
So those 6 words aren't just themes, they're the actionable architecture of the whole method.
They're grounding principles.
Yeah.
And the result of all this is a much more resilient kind of confidence. Growth happens internally without the constant threat of some external metric deflating you. If the only person judging you is you, and you're learning to be self-compassionate, the growth just sustains itself. You've removed the biggest reason for burnout. All that outside noise.
I see the theory, I get the philosophy, but how does that actually help with word retention? How does it make you fluent? This brings us to the linguistic architecture. What are the specific structures that make this practice effective?
Right, so now we're moving from the psychological why to the structural how. The content itself is just meticulously simplified. It's all about using simple, slow, and gentle English.
And the sentences are short and clear, right? They're not trying to impress you with complexity. They're trying
Yeah.
to build a foundation.
Exactly. It's all about comprehension without creating that cognitive overload we talked about. The sources also point out the intentional use of common English learning vocabulary.
Like what?
Words like improve, mistake, process, journey. This isn't just filler, it's targeted repetition. It keeps the content hyper-relevant to what the learner is actually doing, so you're reinforcing the language and the mindset at the same time.
So the words you're learning are directly about the action you're performing.
That's it. And the method itself, the pedagogy, suggests this material is great for just passive listening, but it's also perfect for active stuff like shadowing or repeating aloud.
Okay, just for anyone listening who might not know the jargon, can you quickly explain what shadowing is in this context?
Of course, shadowing is basically repeating what you hear almost at the same time, like an echo. You try to match the speaker's intonation, their rhythm.
Which is usually really hard.
It is. But because this material is so slow and gentle, it makes shadowing, which is normally a high-focus technique, feel accessible and even relaxing. You can focus on just the sounds because the meaning is already so simple.
Now here's the technical detail that I found fascinating. The source material talks about the exclusive, almost obsessive use of the present simple tense. Why that specific tense? Why is it so effective at lowering anxiety?
This is such a critical piece of the puzzle. The present simple is the linguistic anchor of this whole thing. It's the tense we use for universal truths, for habits, for calm, non-judgmental advice. But think about what it removes.
It gets rid of all the complicated tenses.
Precisely. The second you bring in the past perfect continuous or, the future conditional, you're forcing the learner's brain to do all these complex calculations about time and hypotheticals. It's exhausting. But the present simple just grounds you in the now. You listen, you practice, you learn. It's stable. It creates a routine without the anxiety of looking back. Did I say that right yesterday? Or worrying about the future. Will I use that tense correctly tomorrow?
It just strips the mental load down to almost zero.
It does. And that makes the learning moment feel safe. almost permanent, which feeds directly into the emotional reinforcement we mentioned earlier.
The soft, reassuring phrases.
Exactly. Things like you are learning, you are improving, and especially that permission-giving phrase, take your time. That constant, gentle affirmation is a direct countermeasure to the fear of judgment and the habit of overthinking mistakes.
It's like a constant repetition of self-compassion, baked right into the lesson.
It is. So when you connect it all together, what the sources are providing is this powerful integrated model for internalizing knowledge.
It really is.
It shows that the process matters more than the immediate public outcome. Consistency and self-compassion are the real engines of progress, and the simple structure of the content just supports that by keeping the mental load so deliberately low. It's like learning through gentle osmosis.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, who's maybe just tired of that performance treadmill? The big takeaway is that by harnessing the power of quiet, internal focus, and by removing that paralyzing need for comparison, you can find a genuine shortcut.
A shortcut to real improvement.
Yeah, to a deep, unshakable confidence. Because the growth happens in those quiet moments when nobody is watching, when you stop feeling that pressure to prove you're learning.
And that's the final thought, really. This approach emphasizes practicing quietly every single day to fundamentally build your confidence before you even open your mouth. It makes you question how often we see external validation speaking, explaining, getting corrected as the only valid measure of progress.
Right.
So this raises an important question for you to think about. What essential deep-rooted growth happens when you deliberately stop explaining your language journey to others and just focus on the silent, consistent act of the journey itself? What kind of power do you unlock when your progress becomes entirely and beautifully private?